This betting game isn't my fault. You do it to yourself. Maybe my relationships would last longer if my sister and best friend weren't always counting down their demise. Plus, isn't it better I break up with them when I know it's not going to work out, instead of stringing them along? So, when are we going shopping? Ashlyn asked, ignoring her brother. Tomorrow after school? I suggested. Sounds perfect. Ashlyn snapped her locker shut and pulled her Chloe bag over her shoulder right as her boyfriend, Luke Davenport, came around the corner. Unlike Jess, Luke and Ashlyn had been dating for months. And then there was me. I'd never had a boyfriend, period. I'd never even kissed a guy. So who was I to judge Jess? At least he asked girls out. That was more than I could say for the other guys in math club. Ashlyn sashayed over to Luke and kissed him like they were saying goodbye instead of hello. Get a room, Jess said under his breath. I just laughed. Ashlyn and Luke were gross. Cute, but gross. When they finally broke apart, Ashlyn smiled back at us and said, I'll see you guys later. Jess and I shut our lockers at the same time, and we headed toward the parking lot near the PE building, where Jess always parked his lime green Camaro. His baby was less likely to get scratched there. The air was frigid when we walked outside, the ground dusted with a skiff of white powder that hadn't been there at lunchtime. Here, Jess said, offering me his arm. It looks pretty slick right there. He pointed to the area on the sidewalk where the rain gutter emptied. Thanks. I linked my arm through his as we tread carefully down the icy slope to his car. He opened the passenger door for me and dropped the keys in my lap so I could get the heat blasting while he scraped snow off the windows. We'd done this routine so many times since he started driving us to school 2 years ago. We didn't have to think about it anymore. Once the windows were clear, Jess banged the ice scraper on the bottom of his sneakers. Yes, even his tires were too precious for that job. He climbed in and held his reddened hands against the heater vents. It's freezing out there. It is winter. I shook my head as he shivered in his short-sleeved t-shirt and jeans. Maybe one of these days you'll decide to wear your coat. You do know we live in Ridgewater, New York, not the Bahamas, right? Yeah, he said through chattering teeth. We had this discussion at least twice a week. But no matter how many times I told him to wear his coat, he refused. Coats weren't cool, and they got in the way of the other stuff in his locker. At least you stopped wearing shorts all winter. That's an improvement. His lips quirked into a proud smile, and part of me felt like he only did those things to prove some kind of a point. Guys. I didn't understand why they'd choose to be cold, all for the sake of looking tough. His shivering slowed as we headed out of the parking lot toward our neighborhood. So, what was it this time? I asked as we drove past the football field. What do you mean? He asked, pretending like he didn't know exactly what I was talking about. We'd had this conversation so many times. Did she snort when she giggled? Breathe too heavily? Crack her knuckles? Seriously, you'd think Jess was a player with the number of girls he dated, but he wasn't. It was more like he was looking for a specific girl, and he was having a hard time finding her. None of those things. He